Hello, my name is Michael Mondragon. I'm a self-taught artist, UI UX designer, and branding specialist. This is me at 4 years old on my first typesetting project. As you can see, child labor laws were much different in the 1970s. In elementary school, one of my first typography collectibles were old school NFL pencils. Not only did they manage to get all the small text on there, they were all uniquely color coordinated, and the little helmet icons were the cherry on top. When I was 6, I got a Minnesota Vikings football uniform for Christmas. Like anyone creative, I had to know everything about the team. I learned about their purple and gold color scheme, imposing Vikings logo, and lettering that included little horns on the V. The artist in me was simmering. But back then, being an artist was different. No computers, no smartphones, no Photoshop. When I was 8, I took dreaded art classes. These are 2 oil paintings that I completed. But in truth, I wanted to paint the Oakland Raiders logo that was on my shirt. In 4th grade, my parents divorced. To channel my pain, I would lose myself in music, sports, television, trading cards, and drawing. An early typography influence was wacky packages that comically spoofed existing grocery store products. Through sports and trading cards, I learned about branding. I was fascinated with baseball logos. From this, I learned about letter forms and color scheme. I would draw them non-stop with pencil and markers. At 11 years old, I had actually worked a deal to sell my hand-drawn baseball logos at a local baseball card shop. In my high school years, magazines and newspapers were one thing I would purchase weekly. I found myself consuming different forms of typography, layout, colors, and paper types. Professional wrestling and comedy were huge influences through my obsession with TV and pop culture. I couldn't afford to go to college, so I started painting in the art department of a Phoenix, Arizona record store. My boss and I painted this huge spider on the back door of one of the stores. Unfortunately, it was painted over when the city determined we didn't have a permit to do so. This is the only picture to prove we did it. I got more chances to paint signs, plus a crash course in one-shot lettering enamels. Here's my hand-lettered banner for a new band who was opening for Van Halen called Alice in Chains. At the time, it was my biggest accomplishment, but there was so much more to come from it. As desktop publishing came to prominence, I taught myself how to make advertising artwork. Fonts were hard to come by, so I mixed letter-set press type and hand-drawn elements to my own computer artwork. I then channeled my inner David Carson to make it all come together. As an artist, I wanted to start creating things for myself. I created and designed a free magazine called Rudos. Rudos is Spanish for Mexican bad guy pro wrestlers. It was a magazine that celebrated music, food, humor, and of course wrestling. It was everything I was passionate about. This was a pivot point in my career. In 1997, I moved to Los Angeles to take my career to the next level. I got steady work in design and then found an opportunity to train to be a lucha libre wrestler in Anaheim, California. To pay for training, I used my typography skills to create flyers, website, and video graphics. For years, I worked a full-time design job during the day, but at night I was either designing t-shirt logos and DVD graphics or getting beaten up in a wrestling ring. I can't remember getting any sleep during this period. My hard work finally paid off. I got my part-time superhero identity as Disco Machine, a pro wrestler who wore fringe and a mask. I brought my own mirror ball to the ring and danced before and during my matches. Yes, it sounds ridiculous, and I loved every second of it. In the coming years, I wrestled in Mexico, Japan, England, Germany, and here in California. A highlight was being on a one-season MTV show that mixed live music and wrestling. As a kid who watched thousands of music videos in the 1980s, this was a huge thrill. I also got to meet one of my TV heroes. You may recognize him from the magazine that I bought when I was 16. For those that don't know, this is Rowdy Roddy Piper. Trust me, he was a big deal. I told him how much he meant to me. I'm glad I did, as he passed away just a few years later. After years of buying magazines, I was actually the subject of an article in FHM magazine. After 13 years though, I gave up the mat wars. I had a separated shoulder, broken rib, chipped teeth, facial cuts, and more concussions than I care to admit. With that, I transitioned to something I knew pretty well. Healthcare, of course. I am now a user interface, user experience designer for Kaiser Permanente. I also own my own design company called Mondragon Design, with a focus on medical, healthcare, and fitness clients. Additionally, my girlfriend Melissa and I run a nonprofit called the International Support Fibromyalgia Network, dedicated to bringing the fibromyalgia community together through education, awareness, research, and advocacy. Melissa has survived fibromyalgia since her teens. This year, Melissa and I are traveling in the United States to meet with fibro doctors and advocates. Crazy to think all my years of typography and wrestling led me to the best person I've ever met in my life. Ironically, she was the sister of a fellow wrestler. Everything happens for a reason.